Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here. My name is Olivia Collette. I'm the marketing coordinator at Concordia Continuing Education. I'll be moderating today's webinar, which is broadcast from Montreal, Canada. We're here today to talk about generative AI with Jonas Slaunwhite. Jonas, thank you so much for being with us today. Jonas is a manager in technology consulting at BDO Digital, where he helps businesses get real results from AI and data. He has more than 10 years of experience across finance and consulting. He's passionate about making GenAI practical and impactful for small and medium-sized businesses here in Canada. Thank you so much for being with us, Jonas.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So first of all, Jonas, could you break down in the simplest possible terms what distinguishes generative AI or GenAI from other forms of AI that are emerging right now in the business space?
AI is very broad. We consider everything AI. I mean, we're interacting with it on a day-to-day basis, and you may not know that you're interacting with AI, but specifically, it's an overarching term that has been around for a long time. It's emerged since the 1950s. But this technology, generative AI specifically, it is a new novel technology based on a lot of previous innovation, and it's focused on creating output. So whether that's text, images, code. It can even help you build strategy documentation. And it's solely based on generating new novel content based on previous pattern in data. So traditional AI that we're used to, it's used to classify and predict or detect patterns. But GenAI goes a little bit further, that produces outputs that feel more human-like. It's especially powerful in content creation, customer engagement, brainstorming, just to name a few examples. How people could use it in an example like marketing team in smaller, medium-sized enterprise. We're looking at rapid creation of content for different channels, different audience content, context. So the way that you promote something on LinkedIn versus the way that you would promote something on Instagram based on your audience information. You can use GenAI to rapidly prototype and come up with an approach for content. Another example would be if you're an entrepreneur content creator, you can actually use GenAI to suggest storyboards and scripts based on a topic that you want to speak about for, say, an Instagram reel or a TikTok. Really, at this point, you are in the driver's seat of whatever you want to create using generative AI. You need to remember the application is purely recommending suggestions based on what you're giving it as content and how well you describe the objectives and the context that you're giving it. So keep the human in the loop, that driver's seat throughout this conversation.
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying because, that actually brings me to my next question. And, as somebody who uses generative AI in exactly the way that you mentioned as a marketer, I'm also curious about what are the misconceptions that that are really common about generative AI that you think should be cleared up?
My opinion, there's three distinct ones. So generative AI is fully autonomous, right? It's not in reality. It requires strong human direction and judgment. So keep in mind that human in the driver's seat is really great at pattern generation, but not good at making decisions. That's why we're here. Second point is it's always right. It's confident, but it's not infallible. So these outputs still require human judgment, especially when accuracy or brand reputation is at stake. And the third point is only for tech experts. Many of the most powerful use cases that come about are not required coding. So the tools are becoming as approachable as email. The mindset shift is more important than the skill set. And this in particular, this is where I'm spending a lot of my time because these general productivity tools are going to make more of an impact for organizations, especially small to medium-sized business, where you're essentially required to do multiple functions at one time. Having a tool that can help augment some of these processes, that can do a lot of the laborious tasks, and then you become the person reviewing it, that's where a lot of the productivity uplift comes from. And a lot of these tools are very approachable for non-technical business people. So it's focusing your training and skill set on developing and working with these tools, getting more comfortable with them. Yeah, I would say those are my top three.
Yeah, those are good ones. Those are good ones. And thanks for clearing that up. Now, our focus today is Gen AI use in small and medium-sized businesses. What's the biggest opportunity that Gen AI provides to these businesses?
I touched on it with my third point from the
Mhm.
last question, but it's giving smaller organizations access to enterprise grade capabilities without needing massive teams. So you can look to start creating agents that do certain workflows that help. If you're a marketing team, you can have agents that help certain processes within that function that enable you to free up time and sort of become the manager of these tools and get more time back in your day to focus on what are my customers actually thinking about, building relationships with your customer, building relationships with your suppliers, really focusing on the human element of work. AI that I see in the future is focused a lot more on doing the workflow automation and things like that, allowing business people to focus more on the human aspect of business and, growing a good organization for our staff to work in. It's also the opportunity of efficiency plus creativity. So you might be tasked with doing different things, but get time back in your day, you're able to focus on more creative ways of solving problems. You're not just swamped with, well, I need to get these tasks done every single day, and I don't have any time to actually focus on what truly drives value to the business. And then as an example of that, think of a sales team. So a salesperson, they are a primary revenue generator for your business. And if you have them bogged down in administrative tasks, that takes them away from focusing on building relationships with your customers or understanding your customer needs, time to reflect on what is driving market focus, market changes. Having a tool like a GenAI assistant to help augment their process, where they could simply ask the bot, tell me about this customer, tell me about my previous 60-day highlights. This gives them more ammunition to have better conversations with their clients and anticipate client or customer needs ahead of time instead of being reactive.
I mean, so we're seeing, the benefits that Gen AI could have to businesses, but what would you say is the biggest hurdle in understanding and applying Gen AI for businesses?
I would say the biggest hurdle is separating hype from practical. So many businesses either overestimate the capabilities of what Gen AI can do. Thinking back to the first point that I made, that it automates everything. It's my magic solution to all of my business's problems. But there's also too much, and another flip side is too much skepticism. So being afraid of the technology and completely banning it from your organization and not allowing your team or your organization to benefit from practically using the tool. So when you focus on being practical and pragmatic using GenAI, it allows your organization to find out where it fits well within your organization and where it doesn't. So understanding the capability of the technology, leveling up your literacy of your team overall to understand it's not all bad, but understanding the limits, defining a vision of what you want to use the tool for, and then setting tangible activities or outcomes to achieve. Test your thinking. So don't be afraid to apply some small pilots to test what works and what doesn't, but make sure you're measuring the outcomes and bringing your people along the way with you, because ultimately they are the ones that need to use the technology and adopt it in their ways of working. And always, always, always communicate the why behind every decision. That's how you help with the skepticism and making sure you're not overestimating certain things. You're being practical and pragmatic in the approach.
And in your conversations with small and medium-sized businesses, what pain points seem to come up most often when it comes to AI?
There's a few. I would say number one, limited budgets, lack of in-house technical expertise, and uncertainty around ROI or return on investment. So when you're dealing with a small or medium-sized enterprise, unlike a large enterprise, they can't afford long experimentation cycles or big consulting projects. So ultimately, adopting a new technology seems daunting to them. Highly regulated industries like financial services, they're under further scrutiny and require additional planning. But really, how to solve for some of these is proper planning. So take the time to actually plan for this, do business casing, and then define policies prior to any full-scale deployment. Basically, know your why before you start getting into it. have some other ways to address some pain points. We talk about those large engagements and enterprise feel and also ROI. So matching the tool with the use case and starting small. So if you're a company that, most smaller organizations, like I said, they have to do multiple things. They wear multiple hats. Focus on a tool that has general productivity gains. But what I mean by generalist or general style is a term like Copilot, ChatGPT Enterprise, Anthropic Claude, Gemini Enterprise. These are all enterprise grade solutions that are product based, but you as a company owner, you could swipe your credit card and have access to enterprise grade systems that all of your teams benefit. It takes away, having to set up any like specific technical deployments. So it manages all the technical infrastructure for you. Once your team is leveraging proper training to use these tools, they start seeing the benefit of this. Then you can start looking at low code platforms. So things like Power Automate, make.com. These are two places that you can automate business workflows in a no-code environment. I think you want to build confidence in your team members to be able to experiment and try these things and focus on more spiky solutions. So things that a particular business problem that affects maybe one aspect of your business versus where Copilot or ChatGPT Enterprise can provide organization-wide productivity, because you want your team to understand the limits of the tool, but also create momentum for future development. And you want to celebrate innovation. So using these tools, it's a big mindset shift for people. Imagine you're asked to use a new tool that you've never done before. If you don't receive proper training and leadership isn't communicating, it's okay to fail. We need to try this. And if the proper planning is done at the beginning, the likelihood of failing is much less. But in the event you didn't plan, that's okay. You still need to explain that it's okay to fail in these small experiments. That's part of innovation. You want your team to start thinking outside of the box and feel comfortable that it's okay to try something for it to fail, but learn from why it failed and apply that into the next use case.
And that brings me kind of to, what expectations small and medium-sized businesses should have when it comes to measuring success with their early pilots.
I think first and foremost is factor innovation as part of your annual budget. So if you're a leader of one of these organizations, setting aside budget for innovation should be the first thing that you do. Next would be develop a plan and then align your innovation path with business outcomes. So that means focusing that if you have strategic business outcomes, you want to make sure that the way that you're innovating is aligned to where your company is heading directionally, and then try to limit your quarterly goals to no more than 3. Focus on really small, tangible outcomes that you can measure and that your team doesn't feel overwhelmed. They're already overwhelmed in their day-to-day trying to do multiple things, and then you're asking them to be innovative at the same time. So limit your goals to at least 3. And then lastly, focus on defining a business case, clear ROI. And what do I mean by clear ROI? As an example, using my GenAI sales assistant, I make a statement saying GenAI sales assistant for sales reps will increase revenue lift by 2x. Our cost to develop or buy is X. Ongoing costs are Y. That's a very simple calculation. A lot more goes into defining that business case, but you want to make sure that there are clearly articulated, we expect this to happen. And then after you implement it, you measure, did those things happen? If not, what needs to change in order to achieve that?
Well, and I think that segues kind of nicely into when small and medium-sized businesses are considering an AI solution, what should be on their checklist?
You want to make sure that the clear use case tied to business goals, like I just mentioned, be explicit. So, for example, if your business goal and your use case should sound something like this, like reduce invoice processing time by 30%. It should not be explore AI. That's very broad, right? You can't measure that. Next would be looking at data security and compliance considerations. If you don't have a technical team, you should still understand the data security and compliance considerations. Find a partner that can help you navigate that if you don't feel comfortable. But really, it's know the data set that you are wanting to focus your use case on, read the terms in the solution that you might be buying off the shelf, and understand how your data is being used. For instance, if you have requirements that require your data to be in Canada, you need to make sure that the agreement that you have in place with the vendor and they're handling that data within Canada. So those are things to watch out for. And then if you're in an industry that's more regulated, you want to make sure that you're in compliance with whatever regulatory body that may apply to your business. You want to make sure that if there are any clear delineation on the use of AI in your field, you want to make sure that you're adhering to those compliance guidelines. Next one would be the ease of use and integration with existing tools. We talked about adoption as driven by reducing the learning curve for your team. If your team is already investing a lot of their time that they don't really have to now use a very complex tool that doesn't fit into their day-to-day, it's not going to work out. So consult and listen to your team. So if a tool doesn't fit their day-to-day, probably not going to work out. Next would be vendor transparency. So if you're working with a company, make sure they're transparent about the cost, the updates, and responsible AI. So understand what it's going to take to implement it within your business, the cost to maintain it, and who's responsible for both of those things. And also, what are the responsible AI implications of using AI? So if you're working with a vendor that doesn't adhere to any responsible AI framework themselves, that puts your business at risk. There could be a knock-on effect. So you want to do business with people that you share core values. And then lastly, scalability. You want to make sure that whatever solution that you buy, you're not going to outgrow too quickly. So these solutions are advancing quickly. You want to choose a solution that solves general problems, is well maintained, and directionally, your people feel comfortable using the tool. You don't want to get a tool that doesn't fit, they don't feel comfortable with it, and then eventually your business process, it's only affecting one business process. That's not a really scalable solution.
And I wonder, out of all of these items that are on the checklist, which is the one that you would say is most often overlooked? And why do you think that people overlook it?
I think where we're headed right now, integration, in my opinion, is the most overlooked. So companies often fall in love with a slick demo, but forget that their staff may live and breathe in Excel and Outlook. If your tool that you select or develop doesn't plug in to those, these are just examples. If they don't plug into that, it's not going to stick. Your team aren't going to use it. Something to keep in mind going forward is a concept that was introduced this year called MCP, Model Context Protocol. Think of this as a standardized protocol for AI systems to talk to each other. So we can connect to various service providers. If you've used ChatGPT in the last week and you pay for the premium version, you now have what's called ChatGPT apps. Behind the scenes, what OpenAI is using is called MCP, and that enables ChatGPT to talk to your applications. If the solution that you have or are buying doesn't have that on the roadmap, probably not going to scale over time, because the way MCP is going and the way that a lot of these solutions are being developed is the ability to connect into different business systems and then collect all that into one place where the business person that's doing their day-to-day, they can then interact in one place with all different types of enterprise or smaller grade solutions or databases, workflows, things like that, all from one place.
And that makes me wonder, once small and medium-sized business managers and owners find a solution, what's the best way, speaking of integration, what is the best way to get employees to use the tool?
I would say it comes from involvement. So early on, get them involved at the onset of testing the pilot solution, allowing them to provide feedback, sharing ideas, and then listening to those ideas. Really, employees need to see the what's in it for me. And you need to explain the why you are doing things clearly. Articulate the expected outcomes, celebrate innovation because they're helping you grow your business by investing their time. Nominate champions. This is something that I see working well. So find the people in your organization that are excited to use this technology. And anytime that something new comes out that they want to try and use it, celebrate those people and allow them to train other people within your teams. And then you as a leader should pick a use case that solves a real pain point. And then you need to provide hands-on training and celebrate the wins. And if there's losses along the way, you need to demonstrate that that's okay. We don't want to sweep those things under the rug. It's a learning opportunity for you and your organization to get better. And small victories, I go back to using a generalist tool like Copilot or ChatGPT and create agents, create GPTs. The way that the AI landscape is heading is business people getting comfortable creating agents that solve business challenges within their day-to-day and empowering them to do that.
And, you were speaking about champions and celebrating the wins, but, within most organizations, there are always some people who are resistant to change and resistant to technological advancement and who are kind of afraid of it even. As an owner or manager in a small business context, how would you handle resistance from people who are afraid of AI?
I would say lead from the front. So be transparent upfront why you're making a decision to leverage or experiment with AI. And then you want to demonstrate policies and procedures that you're implementing using this. And then providing training and coaching. Lean on your champions that you've nominated as well, because after all, I think not adopting AI is going to lead to your competitive edge eroding over time, because AI is going to continue to improve. The worst model that we have is today, and it's critical to invest in your people and bring them along.
I wonder as well, could you give me an example where AI adoption within a company went completely wrong? Like they could not have made more mistakes. And what is it exactly that went wrong in those stories?
I think being very bullish on the hype of AI and rushing into it without defining what they want to achieve with it. So they would buy a license for a particular tool and just say, use AI. So not articulating, we're going to use AI to solve X problem. And then here's how we're going to measure it. Here's how we're going to govern it. It's really like at the end, you're wasting money, you're wasting time, and you're eroding trust between you as the leadership team and your employees. Your employees are not going to help you on that innovation path if you're not taking your time and being pragmatic and building a plan.
And what do you think were the first signs that they were headed towards failure? And could there have been a way to course correct?
I think early signs that I see is not having a system to evaluate success. So if you don't have a clearly defined outcome and you're just saying use AI, you can't actually measure it as an investment if you have nothing to evaluate against. And there was no feedback channel between your investment and what the team is doing, providing feedback. So they may have felt nervous or didn't want to give you full transparent information that, hey, this investment that we just made, it's not working out. You're finding out after the fact. It starts at being transparent and building that like psychological safety where your employees feel comfortable sharing what's going well and what's going not so well. So it's building in feedback points, getting involved, listening to your team, and then action their feedback in a timely manner. If you're sitting and waiting after someone telling you that there's a problem and providing feedback, you need to action on that quickly. And you have the ability to save or course correct at that point before it's too late.
On that, let's talk about an example that you might have of AI adoption gone right. What made the difference?
I think one of my favorite examples working with a smaller, medium-sized business was we worked to introduce GenAI for quick estimate generation. So it's a manufacturing business that dealt a lot with custom manufacturing. So it would take time to estimate how long or how much it would cost to build a particular product for a customer. And sometimes by the end of that process, without GenAI, the customer would come back and say, oh, that's too much. That's not what I was looking for. but they've lost the company lost time trying to, win that business. What we helped with was build a solution that looks at their previous invoices. It was all PDFs, and allowing the estimator or the customer service team or sales team actually chat with those documents and say, if a customer is looking for a type of product, they can actually see if they've done it before and ask the question and see, what was that price range? Providing a range estimate to say, hey, customer, does this fit your budget? Yes or no? And then they start actually doing the estimate. That allowed them to see the power of GenAI and make a real impact in their business and reduce costs by getting their team involved to be a part of developing the solution. So you're leveraging your business people that do this day to day, their domain expertise, and you're putting that domain expertise into a process that improves their day to day. That empowers them to start thinking about other solutions that they might be able to leverage GenAI for. They can actually see beyond the hype. They can see the practical uses of it. And then you're building trust with your team. So you as a leader, you're defining these are the outcomes, these are the things that we want to test, and then here's how we measure it, and we are going to experiment. So being upfront, being transparent with how they're using it and where the employees fit within that project or use.
And so at Concordia Continuing Education, we obviously believe that training, pardon me, is a way to fill some of those knowledge gaps, which is why you developed a course that you'll be teaching through us called Working with Generative AI. But in your experience, how has training been a crucial piece of the puzzle in adopting and applying AI?
Personally, the way I view it is training bridges the gap between the skepticism of not wanting to use it or thinking it's just a fad, it can't help me, and allows to build confidence using these tools. If you understand how to use them properly and responsibly, there's a lot of opportunity to improve your day-to-day as an employee or improve your business outcomes using generative AI as a business leader. Now, without training, it feels like something like this. So picture this. Boss gives you a license for something. You have no training, never used it before. And what would your initial reaction be to that? From my perspective, I would be scared. I would be unsure of what I need to do with it, right? The leader hasn't communicated the why behind why I'm using something. They haven't provided me training on how to use it, because at the end of the day, they're expecting results. They haven't communicated what those results are, but they're expecting something. So that as an employee, that brings uncertainty. I'm nervous. I don't know what to do. With training, it helps employees understand the limits of the tool, best practices, and where the tool adds real value. It also ensures adoption is just not top down, right? You as an employee feel empowered to experiment responsibly and bring forward new ideas to the business. What we do in working with generative AI is I try to take students from baseline entry level skills, learning the general capabilities of GenAI, focus on identifying use cases, how to prioritize those use cases, how it fits into a roadmap. So taking you away from hands-on keyboard doing things to taking a step back and understanding, is this a good use case? How do I solution use case? And then towards the end of the class, focus on automation. So where things are headed with agents and intelligent automation, places where I'm spending a lot of my time, and then get everyone together to do a use case hackathon. Come up with a use case, build a mini solution. So you're learning the theory, you're learning how to plan, and you're learning how to implement and test results. All the while you're doing it in a responsible way. We teach responsible AI using the AWARE framework. It's really learning how to know your limits with AI, understand when and where I'm going to use AI and where I'm not use AI. At the same time, this can also reflect at a corporate level. As a corporation, as a business, where do we see our core values using AI? And it helps establish a policy. So it's really for a non-technical audience, building up confidence in contributing, taking what you're learning in the course and applying it back at the business that you work with, whether your own business, or if you just want to apply it to personal life. We try to touch on all those subjects.
Wonderful. So thank you to Jonas for being with us today. Thanks to everyone for participating, and I hope you have a very pleasant day.